Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Craig and Chad with C2Sportz, and we're actually just a couple of guys who decided to get together and do this and actually put it down on tape and record it. Something we do quite often and talk sports back and forth. There's a lot of sports shows and debate shows and stuff like that where people have these hot takes and everyone has, you know, these things to say and it's all fabricated and like half truth and stuff people really don't feel. So we wanted to get opinions out there, get some real talk going, and that's why we started doing this. So again, my name is Craig and this is Chad, and I guess we'll just start. This is our first episode, so we're just gonna start and just lay it all out there and tell you guys we are real fans. So we're gonna go through our favorite teams, and I think as you can see over his head there is one of his favorite teams. Also, what I'm wearing here. We actually are both fans of Florida State football, so that's my number one over all sports teams. And I don't know, you start and tell people why you like Florida State and how it started for you.
I'd say growing up as a kid, my brother and I, he's 3 years younger than me, we played for an area that was called the Red Raiders, but we had a huge Indian on our helmet, so it was kind of funny that growing up we didn't really know what the Raiders logo should look like if you compared it to the NFL. But either way, we were maroon and white and had an Indian on our helmet, so we pretty much just went after it. Once we saw it on TV, we were all about it. It always helps that the team was outstanding and always on TV. I think they had like 5 losses in the 6 or 7 years that we watched total.
Probably.
So that definitely always helped. As a kid, you're always polarized by the really good teams, and you polarized in the sense you could be mostly positive polarized, but sometimes, as in the Yankees, if you will,
Easy.
Sometimes you end up hating a team. So in this case, I was a diehard fan, and it was one of the only teams that my brother and I shared as a favorite team. So we were pretty hardcore about this team, and that's why they end up being, as well as you, my number one team in terms of sports that I root for. So yeah, it was basically just a dumb luck thing that we kind of looked like them when we played Pop Warner ball, and
Nice.
and just kind of stuck. And then obviously like you with the players, some of the players just stuck out to you. And I know you got your players. I think my first player was Tamarick Vanover. I know that's a weird name.
Wow.
Number 80 though, because I was
Yeah.
a diehard Jerry Rice fan as a kid, so I always paid attention to whoever number 80 was on Florida State. And Vanover was the guy I always remembered being a diehard fan of.
Didn't he
and I
play for
loved
the Chiefs after?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, it didn't last very long, but
Right. Yeah.
I was always a huge fan of him. Guys like, obviously Charlie Ward. I mean, who couldn't like Charlie Ward?
I was devastated when he chose basketball.
I know, a
Devastated.
smart guy, though.
Yeah, it was.
He's going to live a nice, prosperous life and probably made a lot more money and got a lot more brain cells left, so.
Yeah, but that's something we should talk about. He would have been the first. Like, he would have been the first, like, Michael Vick or anything like that, scrambling quarterbacks that could throw the ball too. He would have been amazing because nobody was ready for him yet.
No, he was totally different. I don't think I think maybe Ward. Remember Ward from Houston, University of Houston? I think he was a Heisman winner.
Yeah.
He was about the closest thing they had, and he was a complete bust for the Lions, if I remember correctly. So I want to say Andre Ward, but I keep thinking the boxer's name is popping into my head. But
That's another
man,
topic.
we could talk about Florida State players all day that inspired us, but go ahead, man.
Yeah. Speaking of which, so yeah, the reason I like Florida State and why I got into them was the first game I ever remember watching was the Florida State. I don't even remember who they were playing. I think it was Notre Dame. I'm not sure, but I remember it was Deion Sanders, and it's the first football game I ever remember watching. First like sports game I ever remember seeing, and I remember seeing this dude, and I'm like, what in the world is that? I was like 6 or 7, 8 years old, something like that, and I'm like, what is going on? And ever since then, he just stuck in my head, and I loved Florida State. Something that I don't think we've touched on is the dynasty that they had, man. That'll never be matched, and people don't even understand what dynasty it was because I think it was like 14 years in the top 5, 14 years in a row, the final poll, they're in the top 5. That's never going to happen again. And I know you have Alabama and stuff like that, but it's not going to happen. But that's our college team, and it kind of segues into my pro football team. So I'll just go with that next. I used to be, I'm ashamed to say, I used to be a Bills fan. We live in upstate New York, and everyone's Bills fans around here, or a lot of people, and it's really unfortunate, and it really is nauseating, to say the least. But I used to be a Bills fan when I was really young. My dad was a Bills fan. He's from Buffalo, and I just couldn't cheer for him anymore. I couldn't do it. I could not catch this disease that all Bills fans have, and it's I don't know, kind of pathetic, if you will. But I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't be a part of it. So I said, Florida State's my number one. And I said wherever this one player went, that was going to be my team. And that player, I loved him at Florida State. I loved his story. I loved what he was about. I loved everything about him, like a stand-up dude that he was. And that was Warwick Dunn. And I said wherever he goes, gets drafted, that's my team right then, from then on. And luckily he went to the Bucks. And he didn't go to the Bengals, because that's who I thought was going to take him at 8. I think the Bengals had, but he went to the Bucks, and the rest, was history for me. I had a good couple of years there in the late '90s, early 2000s, and that's my favorite team. And now, coming full circle to having Jameis come from Florida State to Tampa Bay, it was pretty special for me. And I know you were pretty butthurt about it, but it's okay.
At least he's on the team that I can root for him. If he would have went to the Bills or something, or a Cowboys or something, I would have had a tough time.
Yeah.
But you guys would have your team would have had my head explode if you took Dalvin this year, though. I'll tell you that much.
I don't.
If you took Dalvin, I probably would have just called it a day.
Yeah, I really, really wanted him, but you couldn't pass up O.J. Howard at that. You can't. I mean, he's going to be a freaking monster.
Without getting too into it, he's probably the best. Probably the closest thing you can get to getting on the field and having an immediate impact in the first round, in my opinion. Yeah. That guy's a beast. And tight ends flourish in this league.
Right. Especially with the other people he has, the other weapons he has. I mean.
Yeah. If Deshaun can stay healthy.
I don't know.
We'll see. Hard Knocks tomorrow night, huh?
Oh, I can't wait. I'm watching. So.
Oh, absolutely. I love Hard Knocks. Even bum teams, when they're on, I watch. It's just a great show.
Yeah. Well, it usually is bum teams, so because of the rules, but oh well. So let's go into to your guys there.
Yeah, Niners fan. Been a roller coaster of a couple of years, from a Super Bowl caliber team to the second worst team in the league last year. So in a matter of 3 years, no less, you get rid of a pretty awesome coach, and then it all just kind of falls from there.
When everyone decides to retire early.
Yeah, you got some of those unfortunate things, you can understand where they're coming from. A guy like Patrick Willis, who's just probably one of my favorite Niners of all time. One of the most excited I'd ever been for a guy getting drafted. I was actually sitting in your living room when they drafted him. And I remember just being beyond stoked that guy was a Niner. And I definitely thought his career was going to go longer, but he's 30. He had a pretty serious toe injury, and it's the same injury that sidelined your boy for the rest of his career, and Dion, even though Dion was 38, but still, it's put some people away in terms of retiring. So he was probably playing smart. He even said, paraphrasing, but he said, "I'll never play out there if I don't feel like I'm at my best." So props to him, man. He's doing his thing, and he's a smart guy and real good with the community. But I digress. Basically, I've been a Niners fan since I can remember. I was sitting in a friend's living room watching the game. They were playing the Bears in Soldier Field, and I just remember it was kind of a crappy day. I think it was later towards the end of the season, and I just remember Jerry Rice catching a quick slant, running up the middle for a touch, and couldn't even be touched by any of the safeties that were there. Just never seen a guy like that. The number 80 always stuck out to me as a kid. Not really sure if it started with him or if it was before that when I played Pop Warner ball. But I was number 80 from that point on. That's all I cared about. Jerry Rice was my god. So, and then I just got so lucky to have other guys on the team that I could root for, like Ronnie Lott, John Taylor, who's very underrated, Joe Montana, Steve Young. I mean, you can't really get much better than that. And just some of the best teams that have ever played in the NFL. So I was really lucky to grow up as a fan of them. Obviously, got called a bandwagon a lot as a kid. What are you gonna do? We were hanging out with a bunch of Bills fans where they were going to the Super Bowl, but
Yeah,
they
we're
weren't.
there.
They weren't getting it done like the Niners were at the time. So, there's a lot of flack. It was weird thinking back to the middle 2000s of what a 10-year lull the Niners had, and if you still call me a bandwagon now, then obviously I don't think you understand what it's called, because I think I've had as many shitty years as I've had good years at this point.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's the
I'm gonna stay
parody,
hard. I'm gonna stay hard. I still wear their stuff when I go out. I still got my one jacket that I love, and people always compliment it, and they go, "Oh, Niners, ugh, well, that's a nice jacket, but Niners." And I'm like, wear the shit when they're good, and you wear it when they're not good.
I guess. Yeah. No, I hear you. Well, let's go into what else do we really disagree on? Well, there's one we really disagree on, and that's baseball. Like I said, we live in upstate New York, and there's really one of two ways you can go. You can either be a diehard Yankees fan or a diehard Yankees hater.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty much wherever you live, but especially anywhere in New York. So I'm on the one side of a diehard Yankees fan, and I'm not one of the people that just say I'm a fan. I like to wear the NY and say I like the Yankees. I actually watch. You can attest. I watch baseball.
Yeah.
I watch probably at least 120 to 130 games a year. I freaking live and die by the Yankees. I love watching the Yankees games. And another thing we'll talk about later on is my opinion on the current Yankees manager. But we'll get in that later.
Yeah, I want to hear that.
Oh my Lord, I will go off. But anyway, I love the Yankees, and I remember when I was really, really young. One of the first memories of having baseball cards. I would do everything in my power to try to manipulate the shit out of my friends so I could get a Don Mattingly card. I would trade everything I could so I could get a Donnie baseball card. And then from there, once he retired, it was Bernie Williams for me. I loved Bernie. Everyone else loved Jeter. And don't get me wrong, I loved Jeter, and I was emotional when he retired. I loved him. But for me, it was Bernie Williams. I loved Bernie baseball. And not a lot of people say that was their favorite player, but for me, I loved him. I love Bernie Williams, and
I still remember you telling me that Bernie was comparable to Griffey back in the day, if I'm not mistaken.
Hey,
that might have been after a couple of games of beer pong, but
yeah, I was biased, but in the playoffs, you could not argue his production.
No,
I mean he produced, but that's my team, and you are a diehard hater, so you can go onto your team now.
Well, I've totally watered down my hate for the Yankees because I saw teams that used that as an excuse, over the last 10 years, being that of a lot of Red Sox fans that came out of the woodwork here in this area, at least. And they've kind of, in my opinion, they kind of took over. They took over the whole buying their team, which is what I used to say back in the day. And I was probably a little ill-advised in terms of what I was saying. I was just a legitimate hater, and jealous too because I'm a Braves fan, and the Braves got swept one year, and then the couple years prior to that, they blew a 2-0 lead going home. So you could definitely understand a little bit of my hate, but yeah, it wasn't really justified when it all comes down to it. I was drinking the Kool-Aid like all the other haters, and rooting against them harder than I was probably rooting against the Yankees harder than I was probably rooting for my team. So I will attest that I was an incredible hater. As of right now, I mean, there's really no familiar symptoms, if you will, of the Yankees that I couldn't stand when I was a kid, except for some of their fans are still obnoxious. But I think you're going to find that no matter where you are. And I just with the Braves, I think that I'm paying the price for, once again, being a fan of a team that was just a juggernaut as a kid, and just obviously couldn't get it done like some of my friends that are Bills fans. Couldn't get it done when it counted, but they did get one in '96, so at least they got one, and they didn't go over like the Bills. I guess we might be on track to be a Bills hater a little bit right now.
That's fine.
But either way, just growing up, I was a huge Dave Justice fan. uh, on the team. Fred McGriff, so many guys. One of the best pitching lineups, starting five that you could ever have. With just starting a, even like Steve Avery, people forget about that guy. He was just a stud. You bring Maddox into the mix a little bit, a couple years later, and that lineup was just incredible. What a rotation! I was besides Dave Justice, John Smoltz was my guy. I just loved Smoltz. I loved him as a starter. I loved him as a closer. Loved everything about the guy, man. He brought it. He's doing an incredible job, in my opinion, of being a broadcaster now. Mm-hmm. I don't even think you can tell that guy's not.
No, he's good. He's good.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I didn't know if I was being biased. It was good to hear.
No, there's a lot of broadcasters that I really dislike. You know who I really like? You probably don't hear him a lot, and people gave him a lot of hate when he was a Yankee. But it's Paul O'Neill. That dude cracks me up so much. He's got a good. Really,
I remember him having a good sense of humor.
Yeah, he makes me laugh, man. He's good. I like him. They don't have him on a lot, but when they do have him, I like him.
Yeah, I haven't heard him too much.
Yeah, he's good.
I would say the only two guys I thought you might mention that I was really impressed with were last year in the playoffs with Pete Rose and A-Rod. I thought they were awesome, honest to God.
Yeah.
I've never been a big A-Rod fan. Full disclosure, I met him in 1998 in Cleveland. This is no bullshit. Met him. We stayed in the same hotel. He was the phenom. He was not A-Rod yet. He was awesome. He was just up and coming, just murdering the ball. Griffey was in his prime. You got Edgar Martinez. You got Tino Martinez. You got Jay Buhner. I mean, this team was stacked. And I went there to watch them play the Indians in 98. And Cleveland was stacked, too. They had Justice. He went there. They had Manny, who was my second favorite player of all time. So we could probably talk about that one day. And then and their team was loaded, too. So looking back on that in 1998, which is, I can't believe that's almost 20 years ago. I still remember it like it was yesterday. Walking up to A-Rod around 11 o'clock in the morning on a game day. He's sitting in the lobby by himself, reading a newspaper with his legs crossed, and I walked up to him, and I had a sketch pad and asked him, Mr. Rodriguez, would you sign my sketch pad? And he's like, no, and he wouldn't even look at me. And I was like, oh, man, okay. And I'm 17 at the time, so I'm not like a shy kid, but I'm definitely – I don't want to be a statistic and be one of those kids that's annoying the shit out of a player that, just wants some privacy. So I was like, is there any time that I can get you to sign it or something? Because, I'm a real big fan. And he just said, nah, you could come to the game early or something, but I can't sign in a hotel. It's against my contract. But not once did he look up at me when he said this. He just stared straight. And I just remember being the blinders came off. And I had such a different taste in my mouth about players at that point. And I remember walking away and going up to my buddy who I was with him and his parents, and I just remember walking up to him, and it was just like that little kid in me was gone. And that was the dude that did it. So I might have been a Yankee hater, but I never hated the Yankees as much as I hated A-Rod after that. I despised him. I've never rooted harder against a guy in any sport except for Chuck Liddell. I really, honest to God, man, I never liked that guy. I love that his career ended in just shambles like it did.
We'll pay to what I was
saying last year, I hate that guy, but last year watching him and Pete Rose talk, it was pretty awesome. And they did a really good job, and I hope they come back. When I start watching a little bit more of Fox, but I don't really watch Fox too much.
Yeah, he was horrible when he was in the booth. But
this was all just analysts.
When they're analyzing, he was good. But I think if you put anyone near Joe Buck, they're gonna really piss me off. So I can't stand.
Do you like
dude.
Joe Buck?
I can't stand that dude. I want to punch myself in the face every time he's on the TV.
Because when I hear his voice in football or baseball, it drives me nuts. And he always did NFC. So when the Niners were in their heyday 3 years ago, he did all the big games for the Niners.
Yep. Yeah.
And it drove me nuts because his voice started becoming like the stress.
Yeah.
It was the voice of my stress.
No.
And I think I lost another thing with him was when he flipped out on Randy Moss for doing the fake moon. I think that was when if I remember correctly, that was one of the times when I said to myself, I can't stand this guy.
I just didn't like him.
He acted like Moss had blew up half the stadium or something with a pipe bomb.
I just don't like him. I don't, never have. But anyway, now I guess we can go, to our college teams, basketball. You know, you can go first because you're kind of in the similar situation of me with the Yankees for college
Yeah.
basketball. So
So as big of a hater as I am on the Yankees or was when I was a kid, I totally saw a different light of it, or I saw the same side of it that I didn't normally see, and felt the pain with being a Duke basketball fan. I never understood. I probably the first 10 years of being a fan growing up, I used to say that I don't understand why everybody hates Duke. But it was out there, and everybody hated him. I mean,
hate him.
nine times out of 10, everybody hated him. And I think what made me like them, obviously, was the fact that they were a team that, I guess I want to say the word again was polarizing. That you either loved or hated them, but they were also a team, in my opinion, that brought, I don't know, like a different style. Like they weren't flashy. I loved that they were kind of gritty, even though they all looked like preppy dudes. Mm-hmm. And I didn't necessarily like the preppy look, but I thought that they played like they knew everybody hated them, and that kind of made me like them more. And then I always appreciated the fact that they used to, and they still do to this day, but they get everybody's best, So it always makes the games a little more exciting. Mm-hmm. So as a Duke fan, it's kind of fun. It can also suck. As a guy who went to the Cuse Duke game this past year and saw them lose on a buzzer beater, those people haven't been that happy since 2003. Yeah, 2002 when they won. I'd never seen it. It was like they won the championship, but it was February. But again, that's kind of the beauty of college basketball, in my opinion, and that's why it might not be my favorite sports team to root for, but honest to God, college basketball to me is just it's awesome, man. Like it's everything, and it reminds me of my boy Dickie V, who I'm sure again everybody hates him or everybody loves him, but that guy to me is what is college basketball.
Yeah,
personified. You know what I mean? Like he has such energy. He loves it. He loves everything about it. And as I've gotten older and started to appreciate the little things, it's guys like him, and it's
baby.
Yeah, it's rivalries like North Carolina and Duke. And then even though Syracuse and Duke are new to play each other, there's definitely a feel of a rivalry there.
I think it's because we live so close to Syracuse. And there's a lot of Syracuse fans around.
True.
Here.
That's true, but they've also had really good games since they played each other. I don't think there's really been any bad games so far, maybe a couple. But mostly, I think, Cuse has even come into Cameron and beat them a couple years ago, which is big. That's hard to do. And then they had a couple classics to start. Was it 4 years or 5 years now already?
Yeah.
They had a couple classic games. Duke came back and hit a bunch of threes and hit a buzzer beater to go into OT. And then they made that beautiful block at the end on Rodney Hood that everybody was bitching that Duke got the foul, but it wasn't a foul. It was just a clean block. I'm trying to remember, who was that lanky cat that played for you guys? It reminded me of Hakeem Work, but he was just there 4 years ago, but he made a beautiful block at the end of the Duke game and beat Duke.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal game, but like I said, Cuse and Duke have a little bit of a feel, and I do think that you're right. I think it's probably because we're close to it.
Yeah, and that goes right into that's my team. It's Cuse. I grew up 10 minutes from the Dome, so maybe 15 minutes if it's snowing. But Syracuse basketball. If you live in Syracuse and you don't like Syracuse basketball, there's something wrong with you. Syracuse football always sucked in my eyes. I hated Syracuse football, but Syracuse basketball, I loved, and I loved going to the games. And when I was even up through high school, and it was an awesome time having the Dome Dogs, and it was beautiful. So, what else? What other sports? Obviously, we will.
Oh, it's tidbit, dude. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
A tidbit is that being so close to Syracuse is kind of weird. There were definitely a lot of Syracuse fans, but the weirdest thing was that everybody was hardcore about North Carolina, and that is a huge reason too why I became a Duke fan, because it was just kind of to spite my brother and my friends growing up, which is it's just kind of weird that we were only an hour apart, and the hardcore fans that I grew up with were all Carolina fans, not necessarily Syracuse fans. But
and Syracuse was 03. It was 02-03 season, but it was 03. See, I only have one to remember, so. But anyway,
I didn't say that.
Yeah, I know. I said it before you could. So
No, I'm not. I won't be like that.
yeah,
Maybe that's the old 10-year ago Chad.
yeah. Well, the other sport that we really, really have a passion for is MMA. We won't get into our favorite fighters right now, but we will be talking a lot of MMA in the future. We have very strong opinions on not only the fighters, but the purchase of the new owners, the president of the UFC, who sucks balls right now, and a lot of other things MMA related. So we will definitely be talking a lot of MMA. Other than that, I love pro basketball. Well, I don't love it anymore as much as I used to. I don't watch it as much as I used to because my team really sucks ass. They have forever. So my team is the Orlando Magic, and simply because when I was younger, they had the Little Penny commercials where Chris Rock was Little Penny, and it is also the reason that I hate Shaq. I hate his guts. I hate him with a freaking passion because he left. And
do you hate him still though? Do you hate his personality?
Yeah, I do. I still to this day, like, I think he's funny and he makes me laugh.
Yeah, he cracks me up.
Yeah,
that's what I was wondering.
and it hurts me so much more that I hate him because I can't grow out of that because I freaking loved him, and he just bounced. It's like Dwight Howard. Like, I loved him, and I was like, oh, we're back, and he takes him to the championship and against the Lakers, and they shit the bed. And even Dwight Howard, when he was picking on Stan Van Gundy, and Dwight talking about like Stan. I loved him, and then he wanted to leave. He got Stan fired, wanted to leave, and then he sucks ever since. When he realizes he has to actually play basketball and not whatever. I hate him too, so he can go. He can go kick rocks as well. But yeah, Shaq.
Kick rocks.
Man, Shaq, I used to love him. But, and I think that's the thing. If he would have stayed, they would have been fine. Like, they would have been good. They had those 2 years when Jordan wanted to go on his hiatus where they played the Rockets, and, Rockets, it was their time, whatever. But, man, when he had to leave and then go freaking start winning championships in LA, he's a big asshole, if you ask me. But anyway, that's my pro basketball
An opportunist.
team. Yeah, apparently. And then go get ratted out by Kobe, but whatever. We won't get into that. But that's my NBA team. I still watch the NBA, even though it's like a predetermined, everyone knows what's going to happen. It was a very, very little drama this year, and the playoffs really, really sucked. But everyone knew what was going to happen. So,
don't you feel like a little bit of why we're doing what we're doing right now came about because of the NBA playoffs, in the sense that, I mean, they were talking about LeBron and Jordan after the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Not after they made it to the finals to play Curry or anything. They literally were talking about that after the first round.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge reason. That's probably been the first couple of stories this year that I had a really tough time swallowing. And not the fact that I can't have a compare and contrast, because I think that's kind of the beauty of it all, is it's fun to compare guys even from different eras, because obviously they can't play each other. But I think this year was like the worst example ever of a comparison, a premature comparison. And not to say that LeBron's not worthy of being talked about. He definitely is. It's just really weird that it was brought up when it was brought up this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree, because I know you're a big LeBron, pro LeBron, and I definitely am pro LeBron for the most part. I just have a tough time saying that he's better than Jordan. But that, like I said, at least it's a comparable talk,
Yeah.
At least he's in the conversation now,
right.
And but I thought it was a really weird timing this year. I don't know if they were having a tough time trying to think of something else to talk about rather than the Cavs.
The blowouts. I mean, the NBA playoffs.
Nobody won a game
right.
against either one of those teams.
And I think there was only like a handful of games that were single digits in the playoffs in any series. It was every game was a blowout, and it just sucked. They were all just playing to get to that finals, which was kind of anticlimactic too, because it only it didn't go as long as everyone wanted. And I think they were just searching for something to talk about, to be honest. we'll get into the LeBron Michael thing.
Right, I didn't want to go too crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that. But yeah, that's where we stand in the NBA. Are we missing anything that is of importance? No, not soccer here. We'll talk about that in another episode because soccer sucks ass too, and we'll talk about why. No, you will not hear me ever utter the words NASCAR besides right then. It's never gonna happen. What else? What other? NHL. I mean, they lost me with a strike back whenever the hell that was. I used to watch the NHL. Now I can't even watch that anymore. Can't get into it. No matter how hard I try, I just can't get into it like I used to be. So
I can get into it. I can get into the playoffs. I don't ever have a horse in the race, obviously. Playoffs are exciting. For some reason, it's a little different, but I just, I don't know if it's just that I don't have a team to follow or what, but I can't get into it in the sense of, like, gotta see this game, gotta see this. Like, even in the finals, I'll pay attention, but, it's a bummer. I think I just grew up with a lot of people that weren't hockey fans, so I just never had much of a desire to watch it.
Right. Well, I think we covered our main sports, so we'll cut this one now, and we'll be back for our next hot topic. All right. Talk to you guys later.
All right, man.